Hello YouTube. Recently the US has been rocked by yet another example of just why Donald Trump is horrible for America. I did an article on my blog on this subject where I went over his first 100 days campaign promises, pointing out why what he was claiming to do was ultimately going to hurt the American people. Link in the description. On July 26th, President Trump tweeted to the world to announce that transgendered peoples would no longer be allowed to serve in the US military in any capacity.
President Trump making military policy via Twitter. Today, suddenly announcing the United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military.
When I saw this, I was appalled. Thankfully, many people within the U.S. leadership have come forward to state opposition to this proposed policy change.
I believe that is an awful decision. I served on active duty in the military, and I can tell you, we don't care about gender orientation or identity or who you love.
Senator John McCain, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, also saying there is no reason to force service members who are able to fight, train, and deploy to leave the military regardless of their gender identity.
As well, transgender military personnel are coming forward to denounce Trump for his statements. CBC News interviewed 4 such people in their article, What These Transgender Veterans Think About Trump's U.S. Trans Troop Ban. Gage Gatlin, Vivian Taylor, Janice Covington, and Lara Americo all came forward to tell CBC News their stories. Rather than cover all of them in this video, I have left a link in the description to the article. Please, go read it. It's a wonderful article, and I won't do it justice simply reading snippets. Still others in the military are opposing this policy change. Vox.com in their article, Military to Trump, We Won't Ban Transgender Service Members Just Because You Tweeted About It, makes it clear that Trump has only tweeted about this policy change, and that officially nothing has been done to implement this change. According to Reuters foreign policy correspondent Idris Ali, the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff have told the military that there will be no change in trans policy until they receive official guidance from the president. In the meantime, we will continue to treat all of our personnel with respect, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair Joseph Dunford wrote in a letter according to Reuters. As well, Vox shows tweets from journalists citing sources within the military stating, We don't have guidance, we have a tweet. We don't execute policy based on a tweet, says Captain Jeff Davis. Army COS General Milley says he has received no implementation guidance on transgender ban. Can't do anything until the guidance comes. This whole mess just shows just what kind of giant, lying, manipulative buffoon this so-called president truly is. If these claims are accurate, President Trump seems to think he can make policy changes happen in broad strokes simply by tweeting about it. Or worse, he's announcing these blatantly vile policy changes prior to implementing them, either out of a sense of vanity or an attempt to test the waters with the public. But regardless of the intention behind the tweets themselves are damning when judging President Trump's character. Firstly, they show he's beyond arrogant. He isn't considering the ramifications of his actions, or even respecting the due process of the U.S. government. He's acting like a dictator, expecting everyone to follow in line with his wishes, announcing broad and vague policy changes without any actual detail of what they mean, and without doing it through proper channels. All he needs is a big furry hat.
Now that this hat is upon mine head, and in all proclamations I make thus enhatted, are now and forever law.
I know Colbert here is doing a bit, but all I can picture right now is Trump wearing that hat and tweeting. Second, it shows he's a liar, a manipulative con man. You see, back during his campaign, he tried to win over the LGBT vote by paying lip service to our community. Following an attack on an Orlando nightclub, he made a series of speeches where he claimed to want to protect the LGBT community.
Only weeks ago, in Orlando, Florida, 49 wonderful Americans were savagely murdered by an Islamic terrorist. This time, the terrorist targeted LGBTQ community. No good, and we're going to stop it. I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Since then, he's shown no real interest in protecting the LGBT community, so much as using us as a means of winning support for his anti-Muslim agenda. I won't get into my thoughts on Islam. I will be doing that on a later date in another video condemning the so-called religion of peace. But using the LGBT community to win votes and support for his war on Muslims and then tossing us under the bus as soon as he gets in power just shows his true level of honesty with the American people. I mean, he campaigned on the idea of honesty, as he states here.
Real change also means restoring honesty to our government. Real change also means restoring honesty to government.
He also campaigned on the idea of protecting the LGBT community, as I showed in those previous clips. And he even claimed he had no problem with Obama's directive to schools concerning gender identity in bathrooms.
From Jessica Hershey, Toms River, New Jersey. I'll just read it as a quote on a hot-button issue here. Mr. Trump, please be specific. Tell us your views on LGBT, how you plan to be inclusive as president. Speak about North Carolina bathroom law in particular.
Oh, I had a feeling that question was going to come up, I will tell you. Well, look, North Carolina did something that was very strong, and they're paying a big price, and there's a lot of problems. And I heard one of the best answers I heard was from a commentator yesterday saying, leave it the way it is right now. There have been very few problems. Leave it the way it is. People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate. There has been so little trouble.
So if Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump Tower and want to use the bathroom, you would be fine with her using any bathroom she chooses?
That is correct.
But not long after he gets in office, he does an about-face and directs the schools to disregard Obama's directive, stating he's a firm believer in states' rights and that certain issues like this are not best dealt with at the federal level. Trump claims the ban on transgendered military personnel is meant to save the military money and to win wars, that transgendered men and women in the military are a disruption. But looking at the healthcare costs and budget for the U.S. military, we see two things. One, that healthcare costs are only somewhere between $2.4 and $8.4 million of a $49.3 million healthcare budget, not accounting for, the entire military budget, just the healthcare budget. And this amounts to 0.004 to 0.017% of that total healthcare budget. The amount is minuscule enough one wondered why he would risk the ire of the American people over it. Two, even if this budget savings was worth it, you don't need to bar transgendered personnel from the military. You just need to stop offering transgendered healthcare benefits to these brave men and women serving your military. Yes, the very idea of that sounds monstrous. I share that opinion. But if the issue were really the cost, they could make these individuals pay their own specialized medical care. They'd still be able to serve their country, and it would be a horrible injustice, but such injustice pales compared to completely banning them. Banning them shows he's not worried about the money or the supposed disruption, but instead on the fact that they're there. It shows his implicit bias against transsexual peoples. And this brings me to the third trait these tweets show about President Trump. He's utterly incompetent. He has no idea how to run a country. His track record shows that. His constant stream of executive orders shows he only grasps one aspect of governance, dictating orders to people. That works for a business, but not a government, where individual members of the Senate are voted in by the people and ultimately answer to them and not to the president. When President Trump wants to pass legislation, it tends to go badly. He has no real acumen for negotiation or compromise. His past business record is of him swindling business partners from a position of power, often just trading on his brand, his name. But here in government, he has failed to pass his own Muslim ban several times, often because he sabotaged it with his own tweets. Only a limited version of it managed to pass by the Supreme Court recently. The attempt to repeal Obamacare, a big Trump campaign promise and a huge part of the Republican agenda, has repeatedly failed. Even just a few days ago, as news of the transgender ban hit the news, another repeal-only vote on the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, failed yet again, with 5 Republican senators voting against it.
I'm Don Lemon. Our breaking news right now, the Republicans' Obamacare repeal failed in the Senate tonight. The vote 49 to 51, and one of those who voted no was Senator John McCain.
Mr. Peters.
And how can we tell this is incompetence on Trump's part? Because he has no idea what the healthcare system was like when he started this mess. He thought healthcare was going to be easy.
Together we're going to deliver real change that once again puts America first. That begins with immediately repealing and replacing the disaster known as Obamacare. My first day in office, I'm going to ask Congress to put a bill on my desk getting rid of this disastrous law and replacing it with reforms that expand choice, freedom, affordability. You're going to have such great health care at a tiny fraction of the cost, and it's going to be so easy.
And yet, when he gets into office, he switches to suddenly, healthcare is suddenly complex. Who knew?
Now, I have to tell you, it's an unbelievably complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
We knew, President Tiny Hands McOrangeface. The Senate knew. You were in the dark and lied to the American people like you knew what the hell you were doing when you had not one clue what to do, and you continue to bumble around in the dark, making mistake after mistake that continue to hurt the American people, and you do so with a self-contented smile. You are literally looking at the dunning-kruger effect, plain as day. Now you attempt to ban transgendered peoples from the military, and you can't even do it right because you don't even bother to tell anyone you're doing it. You didn't send out any orders, you didn't advise any military personnel, you just tweeted and seemingly expected people to jump at it. And if you didn't mean to implement it with the tweets, you're still incompetent by jumping the gun and tweeting about something you haven't even done yet. I wouldn't trust you with a management position in fast food, let alone a government. All in all, America voted in a vainglorious, smooth-tongued, incompetent liar. If you in America want to oppose him, write to your representatives. Show your disdain for this president. Show that his actions are not in keeping with American values. The more people pressure their leaders for positive change, the more likely it is to happen. And if it doesn't, vote them out. The people have the power in a democratic government, not the government itself. That's it for me. Please, if you like this video, rate, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, and I will see you next time.